Gaga Grumps says welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Now tap that screen, tap it, tap that screen, yeah, tap it. Game gremlins, come and let's go. Now tap that screen, tap it, tap that screen, yeah, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow. Game gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Gang gremlins on the scene. Welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Welcoming guys.
Gaga Grumps says welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Tap that screen, yeah, tap it. It's your warm-up routine. Gang gremlins on the scene. Gang gremlins on the scene. Gang gremlins on the scene. Gang gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
Yeah, tap it. Gang gremlins, come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gang gremlins on the scene.
Benjamin is in the
Gaga
house.
Grumps says Isaac in the house.
Now tap that screen.
Grumps says welcome one and all.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says fly birds fly in the house.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gang gremlins on the scene.
Grumps says at Burger Freeze here.
Gaga Grumps says we'll be getting started in a couple of minutes, so start your tapping and let's get this thing moving.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Anna in the house. Gaga Grumps says you're not late.
Thanks for the follow. Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says we have a different type of start in here, guys, so sit back and enjoy the show. You'll know when to play. Gaga Grumps says hi Thomas, how goes it?
Or Creative One says here.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Grump says it ill creative one welcome back.
Gaga Grumps says TTS is linked to level 2 in the fan club. So do your heart me and daily missions to level up.
We would be honored if you would
Sarah
join
Not
us.
Saren says, hey, hey, XX.
Gaga Grumps says, hey Eliza, we have a special starting formula.
Benjamin is in the
Grump says
house.
it's Saren not Saren higher.
O Creative One says, add Grumps, thanks.
Gaga Grumps says, Seren in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says, Stella in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says, thanks for the rosefly birds.
Fly, birds, fly, says NP.
Stella Play says hello, everyone.
Gaga Grumps says, Montana in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Fly birds fly says, finally at top for once.
Saren not Saren says I can hear TTS twice, is it just mind bugging?
Gaga Grumps says, woot fly birds.
Grump says it Thomas B3W that's on you. I bear no responsibility for that.
Gaga Grumps says, I don't hear it twice. Anyone else?
Fly Birds Fly says 1K down.
Stella Play says nope, not twice.
Flybirds Fly says it's not going twice, I don't know.
Grump says it's Saren not Saren, no echo here. Maybe close the app and see if that helps.
Fly Birds Fly says it's an audio glitch.
Gaga Grumps says, lol TTS loves your name Stella. Gaga Grumps says, okay, who wants to Wordle with Gaga?
Stella says it's pretty funny hearing it.
Fly Birds Fly says me.
Gaga Grumps says, what letter will the wheel choose?
Grump says that
Predictions in the
football.edits
chat
mutes
now.
are dealt for spamming or being a nuisance. If it happens more than once.
Fly Birds Fly says nearly 10K likes.
Gaga Grumps says, D in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart.
Grump says it Yusuf07 Heya.
Gaga Grumps says, we are starting with A. M.
Fly Birds Fly says mouse.
Gaga Grumps says, leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon, tap and don't stop, like a thon, who will be crowned like a thon, gremlin renowned like a thon, fingers on fire like a thon, gremlins don't tire like a thon, hearts beat flying like
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Saren Not Saren says I can't cope with the double TTSB back and min.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with M please Stella.
Stellella says mole.
Gaga Grumps says Arizona stop spamming, that's not how we play.
Sarah Not Saren says, that's better, must have been me.
Gaga Grumps says mold you got.
Grumps says at Arizona stop spamming already.
Gaga Grumps says it wasn't you when the song stopped Lucas.
Grumps says it's Saren Not Saren.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Lost in the
Queen Elsa says hello everyone.
Oh no.
Grumps says
Well,
it's Queen
creative
Elsa
one
Whiteheart,
says
welcome
it,
back.
Queen Elsa here.
Gaga Grumps says Elsa in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says what did it cost you Lucas? Lol.
Grumps says it's Saren Not Saren, you get 2 for 1 and complain, some people.
Gaga Grumps says spamming will not get me to use your word.
STERLL Grumps.
Gaga Grumps says water fits.
Grumps says at Lucas_Ainsey nobody forces you to be here. Troll off.
Gaga Grumps says yellow A&E in need of homes.
Well, creative one says enter.
Gaga Grumps says hi Fortnite, how goes it?
Grumps says it just stopped spamming.
Gaga Grumps says shape works.
Grumps says it bay too shifty higher.
Gaga Grumps says we have an almost anagram.
Grumps says at the fuck is that TikTok bro hey.
Stella says Peach.
Well, Creative One says Peach.
Gaga Grumps says Peach is good.
It's playtime!
Gaga Grumps says Wordle in 4GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Grumps is on the buttons! Don't let him push yours! Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly! Which team are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps, are you steady? Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go! Team Gaga, 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 Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here?
Gaga Grumps says Boogaboo for Gaga. Share the live, chat the chat, and shower her with roses and GGs.
Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Summer says hey.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says summer in the house. Gaga Grumps says what
Grumps
letter
says
will
it's
the
summer,
wheel
welcome
choose?
back.
Predictions in the chat now.
Summer says at Grumps thanks.
Crystal says good morning. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. I.
Well, Creative One says at Gaga and Grumps you didn't get the race car thing going.
Grumps says at Crystal morning, morning.
Gaga Grumps says Crystal in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart.
Grumps says at Hellaroo.
Gaga Grumps says my own version of Like Race is nearly ready to go live. I'll be testing it around 10 p.m. tonight. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Grumps says it, Adam, stop spamming.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with I please creative.
A creative one says infer.
Gaga Grumps says this is Wordle, not grammar. Gaga Grumps says infer you got. Gaga Grumps says yellow IER in need of homes. Gaga Grumps says remit fits. Gaga Grumps says no change. Gaga Grumps says no tea now. Gaga Grumps says drive works. Gaga Grumps says we honed our yellows.
Stellella says bride.
A creative one says bribe.
Stellella says no D.
Sunshine Katie says brine.
Grumps says it Tommy 6 letters.
Gaga Grumps says price is in the grid.
Crystal says price.
DVP says crime.
All Creative 1 says filler.
Gaga Grumps says danger zone. All options in chat for filter.
Crystal says prying.
Crystal says NVM no N.
DVP says urine.
Sunshine Katie says brine.
Crystal says arise.
Gaga Grumps says I'm only seeing a rise and bribe.
Crystal says no D.
Queen Elsa says bribe.
Gaga Grumps says if it's only 2 we need no filter. Gaga Grumps says I am non-speaking. There is a pinned post on my page explaining. Sunshine Katie says bake. Gaga Grumps says we play to win river that requires patience and thought.
Sunshine Katie says bride.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says Katie.
Creative 1 says close 1.
Will the fireworks fly? A random star chosen by fate. Play a part, it's a live date. Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
It's do or die, only in 3. A pretty sky. A Wordle with Gaga. A Wordle with Gaga. Da da da. A Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says NP Tommy. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. J. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Race to the top like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts be flying like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says IDF was on top, then Creative swooped in and jumped the list.
Grumps says it behave.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with J, please Creative.
Creative one says juice.
Grumps says it Brit Mango welcome back.
Gaga Grumps says an IDF in the house. Gaga Grumps says this is cozy Wordle. If it's too slow for you, there may be a faster game next door.
Crystal says then leave.
Well, creative one says juice.
Grumps says it, yet here you are. Let me help you find the way out, Petal.
Gaga Grumps says juice you got.
The creative one says at Grumps.
Gaga Grumps says my light attacked me lol.
Grumps says it len heya.
Gaga Grumps says yellow UIC in need of homes.
Grumps says at court TikTok puts people in what we call like jail. It's random.
Gaga Grumps says court because it's notoriously bad for putting people in like jail.
Well, Creative One says at court they just do it to you sometimes.
Sunshine Katie says clump.
Gaga Grumps says incurfits.
Grumps says at court it is. I tapped over 800 times and I'm not even top 4.
Stell Ellis says nice one.
Gaga Grumps says fireworks for creative and IDF. Gaga Grumps says Wordle in 3. Let's see those fireworks in the chat. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says at Catherine stop spamming, it won't get your word picked.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. E. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens.
Grumps
the
says
one
at
wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
here.
Race to the top like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned like
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Grumps says at Greeny Bacon, no.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with E please Dino Boss.
Crystal says at Axel Enna_hi.
Gaga Grumps says you probably deserved it, Ryan. And in the house.
Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERSI approve.
Gaga Grumps says you still hear Dino Boss. Gaga Grumps says if your word is being filtered, try, I'd like word.
A creative one says enter.
Gaga Grumps says enter is going in. Gaga Grumps says yellow are in need of a home. Gaga Grumps says no plurals in Wordle.
DVP says acorn.
Eggs and Bacon says audio.
Gaga Grumps says acorn fits.
Crystal says no win.
Will Creative One says rough.
Gaga Grumps says you had to didn't you eggs.
DVP says no win.
Eggs and Bacon says just fancy the song Law.
Extra guesses, risk losing the game. All we cheer is no audio Gaga. No at you either. No audio
says
Gaga.
live.
Gaga Grumps says alarm fits.
Claire Ellis says March.
Gaga Grumps says we added a homeless L. Gaga Grumps says growl works. Gaga Grumps says and a whole bunch of yellows.
O Creative One says world.
Claire Ellis says world.
Crystal says no in VM.
Gaga Grumps says typing skills, where did you go? Gaga Grumps says world is in the grid.
Welcome, Gremlins, to the Game Grotto. Welcome, Gremlins, to the Game Grotto. Welcoming, guys.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Share us round. Now tap that screen, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. It's your warm-up routine.
Grumps says it no easy. Stop spamming.
Gremlins on the scene. Game Gremlins on the scene. Game Gremlins on the scene. Game Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says welcome Gremlins to the Game Grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, gain your points and prepare to play.
Come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow. Game Gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
A creative one says I can see stickers. Must be super fans only.
Crystal says there is a setting if you wanted to show the winning word reveal.
Gaga Grumps says I haven't added any superfan stickers yet, only fan club. Gaga Grumps says I don't see a setting.
Crystal says I think it is speed run.
Grump says it hiccups sometimes and the fan stickers are empty. I tap on superfan and back to fan, that sort of thing. Grump says it HANDBAGS4WHINERS slacker.
Gaga Grumps says let's try it in that and see what happens. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart greenie. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. G for greenie. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Grump says at Brit Mango, yeah. That's when I tap on the super fan and then back to fan, sorts it.
Like a thon, race to the top, like a thon, tap and don't stop, like a thon, who will be crowned like a thon, gremlin renowned like a thon, fingers on fire like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Grump says it HANDBAGS4WHINERS. Welcome back. Long time no see.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with G please Stella.
Stellella says great.
Gaga Grumps says then you know where the door is, Douglas.
Grump says at Douglasland 6 off you go then. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Gaga Grumps says great you got.
Stellella says by Douglas.
Gaga Grumps says yellow G and are in need of a home.
Grumps says at Brit Mango. Grumps says at Are You Mine? No plurals in Wordle, also a cannot be third.
Gaga Grumps says no plurals in Wordle.
A creative one says soggy.
A creative one says saggy.
Gaga Grumps says hi Sebastian. Gaga Grumps says I like aging. Tests the G for 2 places. Gaga Grumps says and it lives in number 4.
Grumps says Angio.
A creative one says a line.
Grumps says no. Grumps says silly me.
Gaga Grumps says will the fireworks align?
Fireworks for Gaga.
Grumps says a Phoenix jellyfish share the live out then and bring more.
Explode 'em on her face, she's in a happy place. Fireworks for Gaga. Wordle within 3, so gifts explode with
Creative
glee.
one says at
Fireworks for
Phoenix. You
Gaga.
can invite more.
Emojis make her happy, as in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga.
Crystal says at Phoenix and
Fireworks for Gaga. From a single rose to a whole bouquet, anything will be okay. If you
Gaga Grumps says it shouldn't be only 80. Only the night one is.
Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says Wordle in 3. Let's see those fireworks in the chat.
BLOSSOM says at Crystal, hello.
Grumps says at Ella welcome back.
Crystal says at BL0SS on hello.
Grumps says at BL0SSOM higher.
BLOSSOM says at Grumps High.
A creative one says, I can see stickers again.
Shout! It's Cooper! Hey! Shine, shine, shine. La, 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 la. Shine, shine. It's
Gaga
Cooper!
Grumps says GG Gremlins.
Shine,
Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grump says Blossom in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart.
Grump says Ella, but you were here before.
Crystal says only letter used in that solved nice.
Gaga Grump says Ella in the house. Gaga Grump says I spy a Cooper.
The creative one says, Ryan, can you see the treasure box?
Crystal says or Cooper.
Gaga Grump says here we go.
Bruce Sam says it's a Cooper.
Crystal says I don't have coins, but I definitely would send him.
Glow Some says what's a Cooper.
Well, Creative One says at BL0SS on name of the dog.
Crystal says at BL0SS on Corgi.
The LOSS says at LL Creative 10.
Gaga Grump says thanks for the Wiggles D. Gaga Grump says TTS going off for a while. Gaga Grump says thanks Kitty. Gaga Grump says because it's way behind and I needed to direct the game. Gaga Grump says no Blossom TTS is slow. Gaga Grump says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grump says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grump says thank you for the words of wisdom MSFS. Gaga Grump says we are starting with A. L. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Grump says at MSFS guy have a nice couple, shut the frack up, kiddo.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon, tap and don't stop, like a thon, who will be crowned like a thon, gremlin renowned like a thon, fingers on fire like a thon, gremlins don't tire like a thon, hearts beat flying like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Grump says perhaps we should make this live over 18 only.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with L please creative. Gaga Grumps says that's why I'm resistant. I don't wanna punish good kids.
Grump says at BL0SSOM that's why we have not done it yet. But since a few days the kiddie trolls are quite meh.
Gaga Grumps says lunch you got. Gaga Grumps says a green N and H moved into 3 and 5 Wordle Street. Gaga Grumps says we end in NTH. Gaga Grumps says Lex in the house thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says 10th works.
Fireworks for Gaga. It's a performance night. Explode 'em on her face. She's in a happy place. Fireworks for Gaga. Wordle within 3, so gifts explode with glee.
Grumps says it Ella what, in the game or the face?
Emojis make her happy. As in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. From a single rose to a whole bouquet. Anything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smileys in chat still win the day. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says Wordle in 3. Let's see those fireworks in the chat.
Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says nice grid. Gaga Grumps says and Ryan made it to the top of the leaderboard just in time for the reset lol. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says who leveled up earlier?
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. U wheel favoring vowels again. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Grumps says that the one and only org stops spamming.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with U, please creative.
Crystal says at Grumps I think it was eggs bacon.
Gaga Grumps says I wish it gave me better reports of level ups. The red carpet gets missed if I'm looking at the Wordle window.
Grumps says it Crystal and I feel it was Seren. I'll try and scroll back.
Gaga Grumps says are you being filtered creative?
LL Creative One says let ID choose. Grumps says at Toby Lee Unison is 6 letters.
Crystal says it was green bacon. I scrolled back.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with U, please IDF.
Crystal says it was when Corgi's song took the show.
Grumps says at Crystal I missed the one altogether.
Gaga Grumps says green, are you still here for a level up song at end of this game? Gaga Grumps says under you got.
Grumps says, just for the sake of it.
Level up.
Grumps says, just for the sake of it.
Gaga Grumps says a green D moved into number 3 Wordle Street and E needs a home.
Grumps says it Jake see that green D.
A creative one says caddy.
Gaga Grumps says kicking tickfinity. Gaga Grumps says not playing sounds either now. Gaga Grumps says we added a second D and why did no one tell me about the E lol. Gaga Grumps says I know you did. Gaga Grumps says I was too busy battling tickfinity. Gaga Grumps says Dodge is in the grid.
Fireworks for Gaga. It's a performance and explode 'em on her face. She's in
Gaga Grumps says Wordle in 3. Let's see those fireworks in the chat.
Wordle within 3, so gifts explode with glee. Fireworks for Gaga. Emojis make her happy, as in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
From a single rose to a whole bouquet, anything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smileys in chat still win the day. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says so did we establish if Greenie is still here for level up? Gaga Grumps says no longer on list. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says yep.
Grumps says we had a Cooper, that'll do.
Gaga Grumps says sometimes a two-word start does help. I just don't find them helpful by default and adds an extra guess. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Welcome Tommy A to Wordle with Gaga. Welcome Crystal to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. F.
Grumps
Gaga
says that Tommy
Grumps
A
says
stop
leaderboard
spamming.
reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the
Crystal
end of the
says,
song
"What
chooses
law?"
the first word.
Like-a-thon, race to the top, like-a-thon, tap and don't stop, like-a-thon, who will be crowned, like-a-thon, gremlin renowned, like-a-thon, fingers on fire, like-a-thon, gremlins don't tire, like-a-thon, hearts be flying, like-a-thon, gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Crystal says, "Wipe out, please."
Gaga Grumps says the man is on top for the first time today. Your word starting with F, please, Grumps.
Grumps says at D tilde V tilde P welcome back.
Gaga Grumps says none of those start with F.
Grumps says at Tommy A no.
Gaga Grumps says it's Grumps' word. Gaga Grumps says stop spamming.
Crystal says fired.
Gaga Grumps says freak is in the grid.
Grumps says FREAK.
Gaga grumps says a yellow A in need of a home. Wipeout denied.
Grumps says at Molly no, never.
Gaga grumps says oh very dear the dreaded word was said.
People drop them in the chat,
Well, Creative One says abhor.
but they ain't all that. All we cheer is no audio Gaga. No adu either. No audio Gaga. All those vowels are to blame. Extra guesses risk losing the game. All we cheer is no audio Gaga.
Grumps says at Nema 188 no period in Wordle.
No audio Gaga.
DVP says bland.
Gaga grumps says abhor fits.
Grumps says at pressed stop spamming.
Gaga grumps says we added a homeless O. Gaga grumps says spamming will not get your word used. Gaga grumps says toast works. Gaga grumps says what did I just say about spamming Molly? You don't need to spam your word. Once is enough. Gaga grumps says spamming does not get your word used.
Crystal says that. It is last.
DVP says conga.
Crystal says at handbags for whiners is last.
Gaga grumps says oh let's do the conga.
Grumps says at D tilde V tilde PO. Thanks for the earworm.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga grumps says we start with C.
Crystal says at handbags for whiners lol.
Gaga Grumps says, oh god Ryan, I hate when that happens and my good eye can't cope with trying to compensate lol. Gaga Grumps says, Molly, you have been warned.
Welcome, Gremlins, to the Game Grotto.
Good game.
Welcome, Gremlins, to the Game Grotto. Welcome in, guys. Settle down. Grab your heartbeat. Share us
Good
round.
game.
Now tap that screen, tap it, tap it.
Gaga
tap that
Grumps
screen,
says,
tap it,
GG
tap it.
Gremlins.
It's your
Let's see those W's in the chat.
Game Gremlins on the scene. 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 Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. Game Gremlins coming, let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it,
Gaga Grumps
tap
says,
that
welcome
screen. Yeah,
Gremlins
tap
to the Game Grotto.
Let's see those
Take a
team
seat,
stickers
grab your
fly.
daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Game Gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen.
Crystal says it's that time, I have to go to work.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says, treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says, have a good day, Crystal.
Grumps says at Crystal you should protest loudly.
Gaga Grumps says, if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Crystal says at Grumps, I wish.
Well, Creative One says at Ryan, can you see the treasure box?
Crystal says at handbags for whiners, thank you.
Grumps says at Crystal, have a good day.
Gaga Grumps says, let's play Wordle.
Crystal says at Gaga and Grumps, thank you.
Thanks for the follow.
LL Creative One says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS, thought you were in UK. Gaga Grumps says, creative, are you on later? 10 PM my time-ish.
We would be honored.
Gaga
if you would
Grumps
join
says, I'll
us.
message you, I have an idea. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says at Paulo A. Souza that's not how we play.
Gaga Grumps says and we just did freak lol.
Ryan says juice.
Grumps says at Thomas the Beast higher.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. J.
Look Creative One says at Gaga and Grumps, yes, I will.
Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon, tap and don't stop, like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Fingers on fire, like a thon. Gremlins don't tire, like a thon. Hearts beat flying, like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with J, please Grumps.
Grumps says jaded, let's have a wipeout. Grumps says at Paulo A. Souza stop spamming.
Gaga Grumps says don't spam Paulo, it won't get your word used.
Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS weird. Grumps says at Zoe RBX no. Grumps says meh.
Oscar says place.
Ryan says leave.
Gaga Grumps says wipeout denied by a yellow A and E.
DVP says alone.
Gaga Grumps says watch it be freak lol.
Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS must be your location being the issue. Strict on gambling, for example.
Gaga grumps says place fits. Gaga grumps says we added a homeless L.
Grumps says not freak.
Ryan says laced.
Ryan says waif no.
Ryan says relax.
Gaga grumps says metalworks.
Oscar says metal or relax.
Ryan says rebel.
Gaga grumps says we honed our yellows. Gaga
Grumps says it
legal is in the grid.
HANDBAGS4WHINERS I'm out of ideas. Could ask TT what's up. Grumps says illegal.
Gaga grumps says danger zone. All options in the grid for filter.
Grumps says it Carol Kane OG.
Ryan says feral rebel.
Gaga grumps says and venal.
Ryan says revel as well.
Grumps says it Jay-Z too late for just trying. Filter needed.
Creative1 says X ever.
Gaga grumps says need a word with those letters to filter.
Charmaine says renal.
Gaga grumps says fever is great.
Grumps says it HANDBAGS4WHINERS laters.
Ryan says feral.
Gaga grumps says feral it is. Gaga grumps says and there's your masterclass in filter work.
Gaga is in the box. Don't let her lose. Grumps is on the buttons.
Gaga grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly. Which team are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here?
Gaga grumps says DVD for Gaga. Share the live chat and shower her with roses and GGs.
Gremlins, let's go. Team Gaga, Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps, are you steady? Gremlins, let's go. Gremlins, let's go. Gremlins, let's go.
Gaga Grumps says thanks says in your daily heart, yeah, grab your daily heart while I set
Grumps says if HANDBAGS4WHIMERS please do it. Might help others in the US too.
Gaga Grumps says might be too. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. R. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Level up.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon, tap and don't stop, like a thon, who will be crowned like a thon, gremlin renowned like a thon, fingers on fire like a thon, gremlins don't tire like a thon, hearts be flying like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says did you level up Mandy? Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with R please Rian.
IDFW says do something for Wipeout LOL.
Rian says roast please.
Gaga Grumps says roast you got.
Ryan says blank.
Gaga Grumps says a greener moved into 3 Wordle Street. Gaga Grumps says blank fits.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says no plurals in Wordle.
Creative One says blank.
Gaga Grumps says B moved into number 1.
Then jamming is in the house.
Grump says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS Gambling Laws FTW.
Gaga Grumps says Amelia in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Look Creative 1 says beach.
IDFW says beach beatty.
Gaga Grumps says E moved into number 2.
The creative one says Beezy.
IDFW says it's Beatty lol, it's never beach.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Grump says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS he who bribes gets to offer gambling.
LL Creative 1 says VD.
It's playtime! Gaga is in the box! Don't let her lose! Grumps is on the buttons!
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart mandate.
Ryan says BD.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says BD still works. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says one last game.
Creative 1 says bye-bye.
Gaga Grumps says latest Ryan. LL Creative 1 says oh one more. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. E. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Race to the top like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned like a thon. Fingers on fire like a thon. Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts be flying like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with E, please creative.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Dan in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart.
Look Creative One says entry.
Gaga Grumps says entry you got. Gaga Grumps says a yellow tea in need of a home.
IDFW says no wipeouts all day. What in the...
Gaga Grumps says no plurals, Mandy. Gaga Grumps says we started with a wipeout.
The Creative One says pinch.
Gaga Grumps says fold fits. Gaga Grumps says T moved into number 5 and we found a homeless A. IDFWU says ask it. Gaga Grumps says ask it works. Gaga Grumps says alive's at number 1.
Look Creative One says oh wait.
Gaga Grumps says Grumps bumped the bed and made my light attack me again.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
LL Creative One says W chat.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for joining me to play Wordle. I will be back at 4 p.m. UK tomorrow for more Wordle with Gaga.
Well, Creative One says good day, good game.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Will the fire
Gaga Grumps says can you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results.
A random star chosen by fate. Play a part, it's a live date. Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says can you help me with my daily Wordle? Please go to my page and comment on my posts with words you'd like me to use next. Gaga Grumps says I will be testing new games and shiz around 10 p.m. UK if you want to help.